Have you ever noticed that what truly hurts isn't what someone says or does, but how you respond to it? In a world where noise comes from every direction, where opinions are hurled like weapons and silence is mistaken for weakness, there is a quiet revolution happening. It begins the moment you realize that peace isn't some distant reward reserved for the wise or the aged. It's something you can cultivate moment by moment. But first, you must confront the truth. You've been reacting to life like it's happening to you, not for you. Maybe you found yourself feeling anxious after one harsh word, spiraling when plans collapse, or replaying conversations long after they've ended. You may even tell yourself that you're just a sensitive person, as if that means you have no choice but to let emotions rule you. And yet, deep inside, something stirs. A desire not to be numb, but to be unshaken. A yearning to walk through fire and still breathe evenly. This isn't about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about no longer giving away your power to every opinion, every glare, every comment meant to rattle you. You begin to sense there's a deeper strength available to you, a kind of stillness that doesn't come from withdrawal, but from mastery. And it doesn't require changing the world, only how you meet it. True calm isn't gifted, it's earned. It's the mark of someone who has taken the long way inward, through the valleys of self-doubt, and returned not untouched, but unshaken. But before you embrace this path, your own mind might resist. It whispers the old lines. That's just how I am. Or people need to be put in their place. There's a strange comfort in reacting quickly, in defending your name, in chasing approval. After all, if you don't respond, won't they think they've won? That noise inside, the one always ready with a rebuttal, a defense, a counterattack, that's the voice you must learn to pause. Because every time you react without awareness, you surrender, not to the world, but to the part of you that still needs to be seen, to be right, to be liked. There's a moment that comes after the resistance, a moment of stillness. It might be sparked by disappointment or by fatigue so deep that even anger feels like too much effort. It might come in the form of a book falling into your lap at the right time, a line that echoes in your mind long after you've read it, or a silence that finally feels like an invitation, not a punishment. In those moments, something ancient in you stirs, a realization that perhaps you don't need to respond to everything, that maybe your greatest strength isn't in what you say or do, but in what you choose not to. You begin to listen differently, not just to others, but to yourself as well. You notice the urge to explain, to prove, to correct, and instead, you breathe, you hold the line. You remember that calm is not a weakness to overcome, but a power to return to. And slowly, your energy shifts. You begin to walk through chaos without being consumed by it. You let people speak without needing to interrupt. You let moments pass without turning them into battles. This isn't detachment out of fear. It's clarity born from awareness. You're not above it all. You're simply not controlled by it anymore. Stepping into this space is like crossing a threshold you didn't even know existed. One day, you're tangled in the habit of reacting, explaining, defending, and the next, you decide to pause, not because you've given up, but because you've woken up. And in that pause, you realize how much energy you've spent trying to control what others think, say, or do. How many hours have been lost arguing in your head, replaying insults, wishing for apologies that may never come? That pause is not silence, it's power. It's the moment you take your first real step into mastery, not of the world, but of yourself. The challenge here isn't what people throw at you, it's what rises inside of you when they do. There's a deep discomfort in choosing not to react, especially when every cell in your body is screaming to defend your pride. But that discomfort is not weakness. It is the breaking of old patterns. It is the burn that comes with growing into something larger than your ego. Each time you choose stillness over reaction, you don't just win a moment, you claim a piece of yourself back. And yet, this isn't easy. It's a series of small trials. One day, someone ignores your efforts, and you feel the sting of invisibility. Another day, you're criticized unfairly, and your chest tightens with the urge to strike back. These are the tests, not of your patience, but of your identity. Who are you when no one claps for you? Who are you when the room misunderstands you, and you choose to remain grounded instead of defensive? There will be moments when your silence is mistaken for weakness, when your calm is taken for indifference. Let them misunderstand. Because what's actually happening is that you're learning to hold your peace like a blade, not to harm, but to cut away the noise that never belonged to you. Controlled indifference isn't about turning off your emotions. It's about turning down the volume of what doesn't matter. It's the art of choosing where your energy goes, and more importantly, where it doesn't. You begin to notice that the world doesn't fall apart when you don't react, that your worth isn't determined by how loudly you protest or how convincingly you argue. You start to feel an unfamiliar calm when things don't go your way, not because you no longer care, but because you're no longer dependent on outcomes for your peace. Slowly, your inner world becomes more real than the outer one. You stop seeking validation, not because you've given up on being seen, but because you finally started to see yourself clearly, quietly, powerfully. There comes a turning point when what once triggered you now barely stirs a reaction. It's not numbness, it's refinement, a quiet knowing that not everything deserves your energy. You stop chasing explanations. You no longer feel the need to broadcast your plans or your pain. Instead, you begin to move with purpose, with a softness that hides unshakable strength beneath it. You realize that peace was never about escaping the noise. It was about becoming the kind of person who no longer absorbs it. What you carry now isn't armor, it's clarity. You understand that the chaos outside only has power when it finds an echo within. And that echo, the one that used to clamor for attention, recognition, revenge, it fades. Because you've come to recognize the real treasure, your composure. It's not something anyone can give you. And once you have it, no one can take it away from you. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You don't need to win every conversation or correct every wrong. Something deeper has taken root, a presence, anchored and aware. It's the kind of presence that doesn't need to speak to be felt. You walk into a room and don't feel the urge to control the energy because your energy is already whole. You no longer perform. You simply are. And that is enough. The truth is, most things that once consumed you no longer even register. The harsh comment, the delayed reply, the fleeting embarrassment, they lose their grip. You see how temporary they are, how little they matter in the arc of a life that's lived with intention. And you learn to let go, not with bitterness, but with a kind of sacred indifference. Not because you don't care, but because you care more about what's real than what's loud. You've also stopped giving away your peace to gain acceptance, approval. Once the currency you chased, now feels like a shallow trade. You recognize that needing to be understood, to be liked, was a way of handing your freedom to others. Now, you stand in your own presence. You belong to yourself. And in that belonging, you find something rare, a joy that isn't loud, but lasting, a calm that doesn't need witnesses to be real. This inner stillness is the gift you bring back to the world. It's not a withdrawal, it's a return. You don't disappear from life. You show up in it more fully, more presently, with more grace. You bring your silence into conversations, your steadiness into conflict, your detachment into disappointment, and everything begins to shift, not because the world changed, but because you did. You begin to understand that presence is more powerful than persuasion, that silence, when chosen deliberately, holds more gravity than the loudest voice in the room. There's a kind of mastery in not reacting, in watching chaos swirl around you and remaining centered, not detached, not disconnected, but fully engaged without being consumed. People may misread your quietness as a sign of weakness, but that misunderstanding is not your responsibility. You're not here to control their perceptions. You're here to embody your truth and let the world adjust to it. When criticism arrives, as it always will, it no longer pierces your center. You listen, not to defend, but to discern. You separate what's useful from what's empty. You carry what helps you grow, and let the rest fall like dead leaves in autumn. You no longer waste time battling projections. You're too rooted for that now. What once would have wrecked your day now barely earns your attention. You don't deny the pain. It simply no longer defines you. Pressure, too, becomes something else. Not an enemy, but a mirror. You no longer brace for impact because you trust yourself to remain steady. You've trained in the small moments, the minor inconveniences, the unexpected delays, the daily tests of patience. And now, when life raises its voice, you don't flinch, you breathe, you anchor yourself in the present, and you remember that your reaction is always your choice, no matter how urgent the world tries to make it feel. This isn't about perfection. You'll still feel anger, disappointment, even fear. But these emotions no longer hijack you. They arise, and you greet them not as enemies, but as visitors. You let them stay just long enough to speak, and then you guide them out. You don't suppress them, you transform them, because now you've made space within yourself where those emotions no longer have the power to make your decisions for you. And when things truly fall apart, when life doesn't just whisper, but roars, you meet it not with denial, but with grace. You let go of what you cannot shape. You stop gripping outcomes with white knuckles and learn to flow. You become like water, not passive, but intelligent. You move around obstacles instead of smashing into them. You conserve your strength for what matters: presence, clarity, resilience. More and more, you ask the question that frees you: is this within my control? If it is, you act. If it isn't, you release. This is not indifference born from defeat. It's focus born from freedom. You don't abandon care. You simply stop pouring it into places that do not serve your growth. And what you reclaim is not just peace, but power. And then something remarkable begins to happen. You no longer need to announce your peace. It becomes a quiet current running beneath everything you do. You no longer need to share your plans, defend your choices, or justify your path. The energy that was once spent on noise is now channeled inward, building something solid, something that no one else can see until it reveals itself in your presence. You move through life without the need to prove or explain. There's a kind of calm that comes not from hiding, but from alignment. And once you find it, the urge to be understood fades. You realize that the real work was never about changing the world around you. It was about mastering the world within. The battlefield was always your own mind. And the victories, the ones that matter, were won in silence. Every time you chose not to respond to provocation, every time you stepped back from needing to be right, you became stronger, not in a way that seeks domination, but in a way that requires no validation. The mind becomes a place of discipline now, not chaos. You begin each day with presence, whether it's a few breaths before speaking, a moment of gratitude before starting, or honoring the promises you make to yourself. These small acts become rituals of power. You are training not for the world as it is, but for the self you know you're becoming. The version of you that cannot be shaken, even when the ground moves. You start to notice the difference between activity and progress, between motion and intention. You begin to speak less, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're learning to let your actions speak louder. You no longer need to be loud to be heard. You've learned the art of moving quietly, intentionally, and letting your results speak for themselves, whispering your strength. You don't react, you respond. You don't chase, you attract. You don't demand, you command. This isn't some mystical ideal. It's something very real, something forged in the practice of being awake to your choices. The strong mind doesn't emerge from ease, but from facing the tension of discomfort without retreating. The unshakable mind is built in moments when you choose to hold your center, especially when every part of you wants to lash out, collapse, or retreat. And the more you choose that stillness, the more natural it becomes. until it's no longer something you do, but something you are. In this space, the world loses its power to control you. You're no longer thrown by praise or ruined by rejection. You are steady, not because life stopped testing you, but because you stopped giving it the power to define you. Your mind has become your ally, not your enemy, and the life you live now is yours, not because you control everything, but because you've mastered the one thing that truly matters: yourself. What once felt urgent now feels distant, not because life has become easier, but because you've stopped letting noise define your direction. You don't need to react to every challenge, defend every boundary, or chase every opportunity. You move with clarity, aware of your values, and guided by something far deeper than impulse or opinion. This is the return, the moment you come back to life, not as someone hardened or detached, but as someone whole. You re-enter the world, not above it, but grounded in it. The same situations arise: late night doubts, missed calls, and awkward conversations. But you've changed. You've tasted the strength of restraint and the confidence of calm, and now you carry that elixir back with you. People notice, though they may not name it. They sense something different in the way you listen, the way you pause before speaking, the way you no longer force outcomes. You don't perform tranquility. You embody it. And this embodiment is not passive. You engage fully, but you're no longer ruled by the need to win, be liked, or stay safe. You show up not to prove anything, but to participate fully in the life that's unfolding around you. You can be in the storm without becoming the storm. You can face rejection without shrinking. Sit in discomfort without fleeing. And walk through failure without losing your center. You've become selective with your energy, not out of cynicism, but from wisdom. You no longer need to argue every point, clarify every misunderstanding, or hold on to people who cannot meet you where you are. You can love without clinging. You can care without controlling. And when someone tries to provoke you, when life tries to pull you into old patterns, you simply don't take the bait. You know now, not everything requires your attention. Not everything deserves your fire. The power you carry isn't loud. It's still. It doesn't demand. It radiates. And that power is the most reliable form of protection because it doesn't depend on anyone else's recognition. It lives in you. It moves through you. It is the quiet knowledge that no matter what happens around you, you have the ability to return to stillness, to awareness, to choice. This is freedom. Not the freedom to escape responsibility, but the freedom to meet it with integrity, the freedom to stop reacting and start responding, the freedom to walk away from what no longer serves you without needing permission or applause. You don't need to explain your peace. You only need to live it. And now you understand. The journey wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about returning to who you've always been. Beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the armor. You are not unshakable because you've stopped feeling. You are unshakable because you've stopped fighting yourself. This is the final transformation, not a dramatic ending, but a quiet integration. You no longer divide your life into the outer and the inner. the public and the private. Who you are within and how you move through the world have become one. There's no mask to maintain, no performance to uphold. You are consistent, not because you force discipline, but because peace has become your natural state. You no longer search for stillness. You are the stillness. This is the rarest freedom, to not be shaken by the reactions of others, to not be pulled into the currents of fear or approval. You have remembered something essential, that your soul does not need to be defended, only witnessed. The energy you once used to protect yourself now flows into creating, into living, into simply being. And this simplicity is not small, it's revolutionary. Because while the world clings to noise, speed, and validation, you stand rooted in something timeless. You walk now, not to prove your strength, but to share it. Your silence no longer hides pain, it carries depth. Your restraint no longer comes from fear, it reflects mastery. And people will feel this. They will ask how you remain so calm, so grounded, so free in a world that never stops demanding. But they won't always understand the cost. The nights you wrestled with your own mind, the courage it took to pause instead of exploding, the quiet victories that no one applauded but you. You've earned this inner world. You've carved it out moment by moment, breath by breath. It's not perfection, it's presence. It's not about never falling, but about always rising, more intact each time. And now, when the storms come, as they will, you won't need to run or defend. You will stand, centered, not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned to ask the right questions. You've learned to come home to yourself. Let others chase the noise. You will follow your stillness. Let them seek applause. You will seek alignment. You've left behind the need to convince anyone of your worth, because you now live in a space where worth isn't earned, it's remembered. And the more you live from that space, the less control the world has over you. No insult can wound you. No praise can inflate you. You are steady because you are whole. This is the ultimate power, not the power to dominate, but the power to remain unchanged in your essence while fully alive in your humanity. You walk this earth with open hands, a quiet mind, and a free heart. And in that freedom, nothing can bother you anymore, because you have become the kind of person who no longer needs the world to be quiet in order to find peace.